3, 2.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. This is Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins. Thanks so much for joining us today for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness webinar. With me today will be Tanika Mangum. She is an expert on this policy and how you can get your forms filled out correctly and get the information you need in. Remember, the deadline, guys, is October 31st, so it's right around the corner. So we really need to get this in. And you may have been denied a public service loan forgiveness under the old rules before. But in this special window that is from a little before now until October 31st, the rules are different. They're more flexible. They're more forgiving. And, you know, we had a Dallas County employee. They got over $65,000 of loan forgiveness by filling out this paperwork and going through this process just this month. And so this is going to be a great opportunity. We're so glad you could be with us. If your friends missed this and they want to see it, we're going to post it on the internet. And by the end of this, someone will tell you how to find that. So I'm going to turn it over now to Tanika. Tanika, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're talking about public service loan forgiveness. So let's go ahead and get started. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is clear that you can put your question and answers into the Q&A box that you'll find on the bottom of your screen. And we will try to answer as many questions as possible. But we are here to talk about public service loan forgiveness and how you may be eligible and how to apply. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cover the basics of public service loan forgiveness and what this program is about. Many of you, this is the first time you're hearing about this program. And so you're wanting all the details about what is exactly public service loan forgiveness. Then we'll go into the limited PSLF waiver, which is everything that's in the news right now about loan forgiveness in this program and what has recently changed and a little bit about the deadline. And then we'll talk about how do you apply for this public service loan forgiveness. And we'll go into some tools and resources to help you. And of course, we'll always end with question and answers. Here we go. So public service loan forgiveness basics. So what is public service loan forgiveness? Well, it's actually a program that began in October of 2007, and it forgives the remaining balance of your direct loans after you have made 120 qualifying monthly payments under a qualifying repayment plan while working full-time for a qualified employer. Now, you might be saying, whoa, that's a lot you just threw at me, Tanika. Don't worry, I'm going to break it all down to you. But short, it means that there were 5 things that you had to meet or check off in order to receive public service loan forgiveness. 1, you had to be on a direct loan program. 2, you had to be made or have made 120 qualifying monthly payments. 3, you had to be under a certain qualifying repayment plan. And 4, you had to be with a qualifying employer. 5, you had to be with them full-time status. So these were the 4 things that was needed in order to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Now, just to break this down a little bit more, again, that's 120 qualifying payments. Now, how would one make 120 qualifying payments? Well, there's 12 months in a year. And so if you made a payment every month of that year for 10 years, that will be 120 payments. Now, these payments do not have to be consecutive. So you could have made a payment at different times, at different places. Now, with the public service loan forgiveness, the basics, the original plan was that you also had to make a full payment. So for example, if your payment was $400 a month, you cannot make a $200 payment and that would count as a qualifying payment. You would have to make the full $400 in order for it to count to be a qualifying payment. Secondly, as I said, you had to be under a direct loan program. So, what is a direct loan program? Well, a direct loan program is one that is a direct unsubsidized loan, a direct subsidized loan, or a direct plus loan. So, if you were a borrower of one of these three loans, then you were eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Then you also had to work for a qualifying employer. Now, a qualifying employer is someone who is working public service, literally has been working with a nonprofit or a 501c3 or a designation that is regards to public service. So it could not be a private institution or a private employer. It had to be a public facing public service employer. This was not about what you do, but who you actually work for. And then you had to apply and receive public service loan forgiveness during the same time. So, meaning that you had to work full time. And while you were applying, you were only able to receive that forgiveness if you were still working with that employer. So, as you can see, there's a lot here that makes it required in order to even get to a public service loan forgiveness status. Now, I have some good news, which is why we're all here today, as I want to talk to you about the recent changes and how this changes everything. And I want you to get excited because this is exciting news. So let's break down what it was, the normal rules versus what is in right now. So earlier I said that you had to be under a direct loan program only to receive public service loan forgiveness. Now, under the limited waiver, it means that you can have a direct loan, a FFEL loan, which is a federal family educational loan, or a Perkins loan. You can have any of those loans and now be eligible for public service loan forgiveness under this limited waiver. The second thing was you also had to be under a certain repayment plan. So not only did you have to have the right loans, but you also had to be in an income-driven repayment plan. That could be income-based, that could be income contingent, and that can be income-driven. So we recommend that, hey, do not try to do the standard repayment because that standard repayment is already going to help you pay off your loan in the 10 years. And the goal of public service loan forgiveness is for it to forgive the remaining balance of your loans. Now, under the limited waiver, any past payments under any plan now count. I'm going to say that again. Now, any past payments under any plan. So rather you were not in an income-driven plan, maybe you were a graduated plan or extended plan, or even in fact a standard plan, all of your past payments will now count towards PSLF as long as they were made after October 2007. Reason being is because the program started in October 2007. So you cannot count past payments before then. So if you were making payments since 2000, you cannot count your payments from 2000 to 2007. Okay. The third thing that's a major change is that before you had to make on-time full amount payments. Now, no matter if those payments were late, meaning they were past the 15 days, or if they were less than the full amount. So let's say, again, you had a $400 monthly bill and you were only able to contribute $100 that month. It now qualifies as a qualifying monthly payment under limited waiver. Another thing is that before, the only way you can receive forgiveness is if you are working with a qualifying employer at the time of your application and the forgiveness. So not only did you have to work for a qualifying employer as you applied, but also to receive the forgiveness, you had to still be working for them. So this was a problem for retirees. Many of you might be on the webinar today who are saying, hey, I'm retired. How does this help me? Well, this is for you. Now, no matter if you had worked or if you're currently still working for a qualifying employer, you can now submit your form for PSLF and receive public service loan forgiveness. This is amazing, amazing, amazing time for so many. So let's continue so I can get down to the nitty gritty. So you're going to be in one of three groups. One, you're either a borrower who's like, yes, I only have direct loans, Tanika. I only have a direct sub, a direct unsubsidized, or a direct plus loan. If that is you, the only thing you need to do is submit a PSLF form. Now, if you have previously consolidated into a direct loan, let's say you had borrowed loans and they were underlying a direct loan, the only thing you also need to do is create a PSLF form. So you don't have to originally have had a direct loan. If you had consolidated into a direct loan program, those will count now too. Now, let's say that you're one of the FEL or Perkins loans borrowers and you're wondering, hey, you said that it can count. What do I need to do? Well, you must consolidate into a direct loan program first before you can be eligible for public service loan forgiveness under this limited waiver. So it's super important that if you have a FEL or a Perkins that you consolidate into a direct loan program in order to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness at this time. So just to go over just again, because I know many of you may not understand what kind of loans that you have. So it's best to look at your accounts. So you can go into your loan servicer account and you should see these different words. If you see where it says direct subsidized, direct unsub, or direct grad plus loan, then you have direct loans. Okay. Now, non-eligible direct loans is our federal family education loan, or as we call it, FEL, or your federal Perkins loans, as we call it, Perkins. Again, in order for these non-eligible loans to be counted towards PSLF and for you to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness, you will need to consolidate at this time in order to benefit. So you're probably wondering, well, I said grad plus loans, and I see a question in the chat already asking about parent plus loans. So let's dive into it. So parent plus loans is a little different during this limited waiver time. So under parent plus loans, they were not excluded from PSLF. However, many of them were not eligible for income-driven repayment plans, and those payments were not, of course, eligible during the limited waiver. So let's break this down. So you're one of three different parents. Either you're a parent who has your own student loans. So let's say you have your own student loans that you've taken for your own education, and then you decided to support a child and take out a parent plus loan. You can now consolidate those loans together, and now you will get the payment count of your student loans. So for example, if you had made 90 payments for your student for your own personal, and let's say you've made 20 payments for your parent plus, when you merge them together, you will not have 110 counts. You will only have the 90 counts. They're only going to count the student loans, okay? The student loans towards your 120. Now, let's say that you do not have a student loan of yourself and you only have parent plus loans. So here's a different scenario. You only have parent plus loans, and let's say you've consolidated before. Maybe you consolidated back in 2010 with your parent plus loans. If you now go into an income contingent repayment plan, if you consolidate into an income contingent repayment plan under this limited waiver time, you will now get those full counts to count towards 120. So in this case, if you've already made 100 counts on your parent plus and you've consolidated from 2010, those payment counts from 2010 till 2022, which is now, will count under the limited waiver towards PSLF. Now, let's say you're a parent who has not consolidated in the past and you would like to newly consolidate now. If you new consolidate now, that's going to be a new consolidation, which means that there will not be a past payment counts to count during this limited waiver. So it's something for you to consider to see if parent plus loans is in fact beneficial for you under this public service loan forgiveness. If you would like to take part in public service loan forgiveness and start making your counts now, then you can go ahead and consolidate into an ICR, an income contingent repayment plan, in order to start your count at the 120. Okay, so there's only those three scenarios for Parent Plus loans. So let's talk about how to apply now. Many of you might be excited and wondering, how do I get started? So the beautiful thing is there's only one form. There's only one form. So you don't have to go all over trying to find different forms. There's only one. Now, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to address the qualifying employer. So you want to go to the PSLF employer search tool and you want to have two things from your employer. You want to have the EIN number. The EIN number stands for your employer identification number. This employer identification number is what is filed when your employer files taxes, and it will determine if they are indeed a 501c3 or a nonprofit. You can check the status to see if your employer is indeed eligible by going into the employer search tool. And you can absolutely go ahead and do that. So when you do that and you determine, okay, I have an eligible employer, then you can move on to filling out the form. Now, what if it comes back and it says it's unlikely that you have an eligible employer, but you know for sure that, hey, I know it's a nonprofit. I know I'm working for the government, whether it be local, local, state, or federal. If you are working for government or if you're working in any capacity, even school teachers, this includes public education. So if you're working for a public school, then you are eligible. If you are working as a nurse or in healthcare for a public or a nonprofit hospital or a nonprofit healthcare center, you also are eligible. So all of those things determine if you're eligible. If it's not showing up in a database, don't be alarmed or fearful. It just means that we can't have everybody on the database. So if you believe that is true, you can absolutely still submit your form with the EIN number. It just means that maybe someone hasn't applied from your actual employer yet, or you just don't have them in the database yet. So go ahead and still apply, even if it does not show up on the employer search tool and you believe that it should. So let's getting down to how do you complete the form. So we're going to go to the PSLF help tool, which is at studentaid.gov/PSLF. There are 5 sections to this help tool. So you're going to take the same information that you just did with your employer search tool for the employment history. And here is where you'll list your EIN number, your employer identification number, and also your dates of employment. So you want to have that handy. So if you worked for a nonprofit from some years ago, from 2007 on, and you want to get those payment counts to count, put them in as well. Even in your current position, even if you're not working for a current qualifying employer, but you did before, take advantage, get all these payment counts to count to your 120. The goal is for your 120 count, okay? That is the goal, 120 count. So if you have to pull back from some old past employment, put them on here. Get every single month to count, every single payment to count. Now, you also will have some information about your loan tips. You do have to sign in, so this will allow you to tell you if you're unsure if you need to consolidate or not. It will tell you, hey, you have these type of loans, so you would have to consolidate in order to be eligible for PSLF. It will tell you the steps to do that and so on. It will also give you application details, everything that you need to know in order to fulfill your actual form. Then it will ask you for your personal information. Many of you have not signed in for a long time, and there may be some out-of-date information. And I'm pretty sure you want to be aware or notified if you indeed got public service loan forgiveness. So this is the section where you get to update your information to ensure that we have the right contact. Please make sure you double check your email accounts. Even when doing this webinar, there were some that put the wrong domain, or instead of a period, they put a comma. And so I had to go back just to make sure that I'm sending it to the right person, or I had to recorrect the email address. So take your time during this form to make sure that every single dot is dotted and every single T is crossed, so that way you don't miss anything. And then it's going to give you opportunity to review and save your information. Now, once you go through that, you are not done. But I want to take a second here and just pause. If you are a service member, first of all, thank you so much for your service. We greatly appreciate it. And also, we want to allow you to know that, hey, there's a recent change for your employment certification. So if you've been servicing or you've been in service for quite some time, you can use your DD-214s instead of having an employer having to go around and find all these different signatures. You can use a DD-214 in order to be eligible or to verify your employment, your service. So once you have reviewed and saved, it will take you to a confirmation page. Again, this is just a confirmation page that you have indeed completed your application, but you are not done. We still have to submit this form. So there's a link there that says download the PSLF form. It literally will auto-populate every information that you put into the tool into this form. So there will be no errors for you. And what you will do then is that you will have to submit. So many of you are now a current borrower or have a loan servicer of Mohila. Mohila is the only loan servicer who is going to be managing public service loan forgiveness. So if you are with Advantage or Nelnet or another loan servicer, you still should send your information only to Mohila. Do not send it to your actual loan servicer, only sending to Mohila. Now, if you are already a Mohila customer, meaning that you have been transferred. Many of you were Fed loans, and Fed loans is no longer administrating student loans, and so you were transferred into another loan servicer. If that loan servicer was Mohila, then you will still be able to upload your form instead of having to send it via mail or a fax. Everyone else who is not a Mohila as their loan servicer will need to mail or fax their form. Okay, so you only have three options. You either mail or your fax. If you are a Mohila loan servicer, as your loan servicer, then you have the ability, to upload your form. Okay, so this is how this works. Now, there's a couple things that I want to make clear here, is that in order, before you submit this form, you need to get signatures. You need to get signatures to verify your employment. Now, we're living in a digital age now, yes, but we haven't been able to catch up yet in terms of digital signs. So please don't use platforms like DocuSign or anything like that. Please don't use those. We want to have a hand-drawn signature. That means it has to actually be a manual signature, or the employer will need to sign a piece of paper, take a picture of it, and upload it as an image onto the document. Please note that the form must be in its original state, which means you do not want them to sign the form and scan it back to you. Okay, so please don't scan it back to you. Make sure that they're signing it and maybe they're uploading it, again, attaching the photo, and they're sending it back to you via email. But please don't have them scan it back to you, because then that means it's a photocopy and we cannot verify it. Okay, so again, no italicize, no DocuSign, no platforms that do digital signatures. We're looking for actual signatures, hand-drawn or image of hand-drawn, in order for this to count for your verification. Please know, you do not want to skip this. I know there's some confusion out there that says, oh, somebody just told me I can just submit it without signatures, and then they will, let me know. Now, if you are working with an employer that, or have worked for an employer that's no longer open or is no longer in actual effect, then there is a checkbox on the form that will allow you to check that, your employer no longer exists. If that's the case, then you will need to also submit with this form a W-2 from that period to just confirm that you indeed were an employer of that employee of that employer. So please make sure that you're providing proof, but you do not, and I repeat, you do not want to submit your form with no signatures and wait. Okay, we have a very high volume of applications coming in, so you do not want to skip all signatures. If you can get a signature, then you want to also submit your W-2s or any information to prove that you were indeed working for that employer, but you do not want to skip out and say, oh, I'll just submit it blank. Okay. So again, just to break down everything, you want to confirm your employer is indeed qualified. If you have a FAL or Perkins, you need to consolidate your loans into a direct loan program during this time, and you must submit your PSLF form. You must submit your PSLF form by October 31st of 2022. So this is literally almost a month away. So it's so important that you're on today to make sure that people and you, your family, your friends, including yourself, are doing everything that is possible in order to submit this form and take advantage of this waiver. Because after the October 31st, November 1st, it goes back to the basic rules. So we want to make sure that you're putting all your forms in to say, please count my time, please count my past payments, please ensure that I can get access to public service loan forgiveness because of the waiver. If you don't do that, then we're going back to the basics rules. Okay. So just some tools and resources. I created a PSLF checklist, which is on the studentaid.gov site to really help you navigate everything that I've talked about today. So you will be able to really see step by step, okay, what do I need to do? How do I double check if I'm indeed eligible for this public service loan forgiveness? We have an upcoming event as well. So we have an upcoming federal financial aid virtual boot camp. So if you or you're on this call and you're saying, man, I know some people who really would benefit from this information and they're not on today, tell them there's still chances. So October 18th and October 20th, we will be doing public service loan forgiveness webinars as well. We'll be doing October 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 5 p.m. your time, and October 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is noon at your time. So some resources, just to make sure we're clear, if you want to know specifics about the PSLF waiver itself during this time, then you can go to studentaid.gov/PSLF waiver. If again, you want to complete this form, which I highly recommend that you do, is to go to studentaid.gov/PSLF. Again, all information and everything about public service loan forgiveness is only going to MOHELA. Okay, so you're probably wondering, well, what if I'm with another loan servicer and it's MOHELA? Do I have to get transferred again? Please be assured that the process is they're going to receive your form first. They're going to send a confirmation that they have received your form first. That's the very first notification that you should be looking for, is a notification that they have received your form. Now, this can take a couple months now. Again, we have a very high value. So don't be nervous about, I submitted my form 3 months ago and I still haven't heard anything. The very first thing that you want to know is if they have indeed received it. Now you can log into your accounts at studentaid.gov, and also MOHELA if you are if your loan servicer is MOHELA, to check on your statuses there as well. But the process is that once they get their form, they're going to send a confirmation that they received their form. They're going to first check your form for those signatures and verifying your employer. That's the very first thing that they're going to do. If they cannot determine, or it says that, hey, you are not eligible because you don't have an eligible employer, they will let you know that. They will contact you and tell you, hey, unfortunately, you're not eligible for public service loan forgiveness because of this thing, okay? Because you don't have an eligible employer. So it's very important, again, that you make sure that if you really believe that you have an eligible employer, to submit supporting documents with that, or to, again, verify with the right signatures. Once they have that, and there's the right signatures, and they verify that you have employer, then they will reach out to your loan servicer to begin the transfer process into the MOHELA, because that is the only one who's going to do public service loan forgiveness. You're basically indicating that you would like to start your public service loan forgiveness process. So if you have a different loan servicer and they have verified that you have worked for an eligible employer, then they will begin that process to transfer you over to MOHELA. but there will be no transfers unless that is done first. Then from there is when the counts start. Okay, and then you will receive not one, not two, not three. You could even receive 4 notifications about updated counts. So don't be alarmed if the very first count you receive is you've been working 18 years and they only count 20 counts. There's not going to be just one big count. Okay, so I want to make sure that I stress that you might get multiple notifications to say, hey, we've counted now. So really pay attention to the date. Every date of the notification will tell you what they counted up to, the date that they counted up to. So don't just skim, go straight to the number and say, oh, they only counted 20. This is bogus, right? You want to look at the date and see what time period did they count up to first. That means that there's going to be more counts to come. And so you should be patient in that, please. Okay, so we have multiple channels for you to get additional information as well. We're always posting about public service loan forgiveness and ensuring that you have all the correct information to fill out this form and to take advantage of the limited waiver. So now is the time for questions. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen here, and I'm going to look at some questions. So let's see what we have here. And thank you all for submitting your questions. I hope that I can get to as many as possible in our time together. So, how do you make sure you are a recipient of the forgiveness? So you have to meet the basics, right? So the 2 things have not changed. You have to make 120 qualifying payments. Now, there's something that I did not share with you that's very important as well, is that during this COVID-19 forbearance, many of you might recall that you're not required to make payments right now, right? That it's a 0% interest and it does not require you to make payments during this COVID-19 forbearance. That means also, if you're submitting your PSLF form, you can also get these past months to count. I'm going to say that again. That means that since March 2020, till the beginning of when repayment begins, which is going to be December 31st, right? That's when the end of the COVID-19 forbearance is scheduled to be. That means that is almost 29, 30 payments that you can add to your PSLF count as long as you submit this form. So let's say that you've only been working for an employer for maybe 5 years, right? So you've been making 5 years of payments, then that will take you to 60 payments, right? So five years, 12 payments a year, that's 60. Now you might say, well, is it even worth me doing this PSLF form? I only have 60 payments. Should I just wait? But I just told you that you can also get an additional 29 payments if you're still working for the eligible employer. So if you're with an eligible employer now, it's even more important for you to submit this form right now, because now instead of having just 60, you can have almost 80 payment counts just from this, because they're going to count this COVID-19 forbearance period as if you are making payments, even though you're not required to. So great question. You want to make sure, again, you have an eligible employer, and the goal is to get to 120 to make sure that you're a recipient. So let's see what else. So someone asked about FFEL loans to be certified for direct loan consolidation. How will I benefit if I'm been with employer for 18 years and making payments? So if you're with the FFEL loans, then you can consolidate into a direct loan program. So if you were with FFEL, again, one of the benefits of the limited waiver is that you can indeed consolidate now in order to take advantage of this limited waiver, and thus get your past payments counts from 2007, remember, 2007 on, to count towards your 120. So we asked about Parent Plus loans. I think I went through that in great detail there. Someone asked if SoFi loans count. Again, this is only for federal student loans. So private loan lenders, unfortunately, do not benefit from any of the forgiveness programs from the federal government. So this includes public service loan forgiveness, and it also would include the recent announcement from President Biden as well. Let's see. If I've already submitted my request to count my current employer, will I need to resubmit again annually? If you have not met your 120, it's very important because you want to verify your employer, right? Because that's one of the main things. So you have to verify your employer. So let's say you only have 60, right? Back to the example, you submitted the PSLF form and now you're getting these additional 29 counts. So now you're almost at 80 and you're going to be working some more with this eligible employer, or you leave this employer and you go work for another eligible employer. You want to make sure that you submit the form again for next year to get all of those months and those time frames to count to get to the 120. Again, as soon as you get to the 120, that's when public service loan forgiveness happens. Do we have to transfer our existing direct loans into an income-driven repayment plan? Great question. So if you're in a direct loan program now, you can, you're already eligible for public service loan forgiveness because you have a direct loan. Direct loans, as long as it's not a standard repayment plan. So if you're in an income-driven plan, that's the best option for you. So you can and you should consider an income-driven repayment plan for PSLF, but you're already eligible for PSLF. So you do not have to consolidate your direct loan programs under this limited waiver for those payments to count. Now, here's the thing. If you're waiting or if you're not quite there yet and hey, you're not going to make the 120 by the October 31st deadline, then hey, guess what? You're going to be back to the basics, right? And the only way the basics from the beginning says that you have to be an income-driven repayment plan. So it is wise to consider and to look at the repayment plans that might be best for you. And you can do that by going to studentaid.gov/loan-simulator. Okay, so that's studentaid.gov/loan-simulator. Okay, we just talked about the forgiveness counts during the pause. Yes, so everybody's on that with that. So yes, they will count as long as you're working for an eligible employer. So they will not count for PSLF unless you're with an eligible employer. In order to qualify for forgiveness, do we need to make 120 payments and be working for 10 years? Yes, because that meets the 120. So 120 payments has to be in alignment with you working with an eligible employer at the same time. So if you're just making 120 payments, but you only worked for an eligible employer for 5 of those 120 payments, you still need the 5 additional years for a qualifying employer in order to benefit from public service loan forgiveness. Great question. So question again about, it says the form says Mohila, but you have a different loan servicer. Do you submit to all loan servicers? Nope, you just submit to Mohila. Okay, let's say, what if you have made a payment yet, meaning you just got the loan? So if you just got the loan, then this is something for you to consider. If you're going to be continuing into public service, then you might want to start to enroll in the public service loan forgiveness and work your way to 120. But there will be no forgiveness because you haven't made any qualifying payments yet. So again, the 120 payments has to be made for loan forgiveness. How will the entities determine the time frame that those payments were made to any entity? So again, it's an alignment with your payment count and the time that you working for an eligible employer at the same time. That's how they will determine that time frame. So when you put in the dates of your employment, they're going to see if that matches up to your payments as well. So does less than 120 qualifying payments disqualify my forgiveness application? It does not disqualify. It just means that you don't have public service forgiveness yet. Again, you're working towards the 120. So again, if you only have a certain amount of counts, we still got to be adding this COVID-19 forbearance counts. You can only get them unless you submit the form. They are not automatic. So again, you might be coming in with 60 counts, 70 counts, and now you're getting this additional 29. You're that much step closer to the 120. The goal, again, is the 120, hitting the 120. The only way you know if you're getting close to 120 is if you submit your PSLF form. So maybe you're saying, I don't really know how many counts I have. Well, this is a great option for you to go into studentaid.gov, log in, and it will tell you your cumulative count, PSLF, without this limited waiver. So if you're just wondering, hey, I want to know how many eligible accounts that I do have with just the PSLF basics, then you can go into your studentaid.gov count and then you can see that there. Yes, I will provide a copy of the slides, and this is being recorded. Let's see what else. Must the loans have been taken out after 2000? No, so the loan could have been taken out at any time. It's just that we're counting the payments from 2007 onwards. So the loan could be taken out at an earlier time. It's just the qualifying payments start at October 2007. Submitted my form via fax in August. I have not heard anything from them yet. So August is, again, is going to be a high volume thing. So August 30th, that's less than a month from now. You still are going to have to wait patiently because we are still having a lot of volume. So don't expect it to be a month. And don't worry, let me just stop here to say, let's say you submit your form and you haven't heard anything back yet. And you're wondering, like, return repayment coming up in December, January 1st is when return and repayment starts again. I want to know where my payment counts are. I want to know all those things. You can, again, go into your loan servicer portal if you're MOHELA, and then you'll be able to see those updates there. You can also go to your studentaid.gov account to see updates there as well. But the very first thing that you should receive is your confirmation that they have received your application. Please note that even if it's past the deadline, we're still counting all of those past payments for your limited waiver. So I know many of you may be anxious because return to repayment is coming around and you want to know. There is a button on the form that will ask you, do you want to be put into forbearance until you have received your notification of your final count? So if you're like, well, return to repayment starts in January, I think I'm close to 120. I'm pretty sure I have 120. I'm pretty confident in that. And I don't want to start paying again and then I have forgiveness. Well, you can put your account into forbearance and say, listen, I'm going to wait until you give me the final count. Now, if you're not close to 120, you know that, then obviously you want to prepare for the return to repayment in January, but you can also opt for your forbearance as well. Is there a place I can get assistance for completing the application? The only place is the help tool. We don't have the opportunity to have staff to be able to help every individual person with their application, which is why we created the help tool to help you based on your actual loan. So this is why it's important that you have to log into the system in order for you to even use the help tool so that we can help it efficiently. So somebody said they submitted their form to HR, they signed electronically. Is that okay? No, it is not okay. So I would recommend that you send it back to the HR and tell them those two things. We need a hand signed signature that they could then, they can give back to you, or since it's electronic, so it's digital, they need to hand sign a piece of paper, take a photo of that and attach it to your form and then send the form back to you. But electronic signatures will not be eligible or verified. Great question. Okay. Are direct loan consolidation subsidized and direct loan consolidation unsubsidized loans eligible? Yes, they are. They're direct loan programs, so yes, they are. How do periods of forbearance and deferments affect this? Great question. So again, administrative forbearance, COVID-19 forbearance, you'll get those additional counts towards PSLF. However, we also have forbearance periods. So there were some forbearance periods that are now being accepted as payments towards PSLF as well, because either the loan servicer put them at a longer forbearance period than it was necessary. There's a lot of different scenarios, and it's going to be based on each individual person. But please note, in-school deferment or grace periods, all of those, or if you're in default, they will not count towards PSLF. Those payment counts will not count towards PSLF. So if you're in school right now, Any payments that you're making, or if you're in school for the last couple of years, any payments that were made during the time because you were not in a repayment status, then those payment counts will not count towards PSLF. Okay, let's see. What if the school you worked for is now closed? There is a box on the form that you can click that on that says that it is now closed. And you can also submit a W-2 or a documentation to prove that you were in fact working there during the periods that you're listing. Okay, we talked about that already. Let's see. Does months count if my repayment amount was 0 due to my work status? Yes, so there are some repayment plans that have it as 0 balance or a 0 payment count. Those will be in fact counted as if you as a monthly qualifying payment. So whatever your designated income-driven repayment plan status was, then that would count. Okay. Does working for a university count? Yes, it does. Absolutely. If you worked as a contractor for the federal government, can I file this time? Again, it has to be 30 hours a week as a full-time status. So if you are working full-time as a contractor and you have a W-2, that's the biggest thing. So the W-2 is actually what classifies someone as being indeed an employer of the employee of the employer. If you are working part-time, you can have 2 part-time jobs, which is like 15 hours a week, to total up to 30 hours to then count for PSLF. So if you don't have a full-time position, but you're working for 2 eligible employers part-time, you can put all those together to then count for a PSLF. You previously applied prior to the new changes. Will that previous application count towards it, or would it have to resubmit in light of the new policy? I would submit during this limited waiver time. Okay, because you have to re-verify your employment. So if you submitted before, okay, they're probably going to look back at your past payments, but you want to get the payments from the last time you submitted and all through this actual time period as well. So I would encourage you to resubmit. If I previously applied for PSLF 2 months ago, should I complete a new form? No, it's still in process. So don't be alarmed. It's still in process. So no, you do not have to submit after 2 months unless you put an end date. So if you switch jobs and you put an end date on your form to say that you're no longer employed at that actual employer, then yes, submit so you can get these next 2 months or whatever months to pay to count towards the end of repayment, which is December 31st. You're already enrolled in PSLF. You have multiple direct loans under IDR payment plans. Do I still need to consolidate under the new waiver? No, if you have a direct loan and you're already under an IDR plan, you are all set. No, there will be no concerns about restarting your payment counts at all. Okay, let's see. I'm confused about when other non-military forbearances count, for example, when lenders steer to, yes. So this is what I was just mentioning. There are some lenders who have steered forbearance during those counts. Those will automatically be a count. So you won't have to submit your form for that. We will already count those. So it's going to be an automatic one payment count. So you will see that reflected closer towards the return to repayment period. So yeah, default and rehabilitation will not count towards PSLF. You would have to get out of default and rehabilitation status in order to count for PSLF. Should loan servicers be sending requests for payments? Well, it depends. So if you are under a FEL loan and you have not consolidated, FEL loans some FEL loan borrowers are still having or required to make payments during the COVID-19 period. So if that is you, then yes, they can still request that. But right now, they don't have, it's up to you if you want to make payments or not. right? So it's up to you whether you're going to put the payment down to principal or not. I'm a government employee and do not have student loans of my own, but my child has student loans, so my child's student loans qualify for PSLF. So it's only if your child is working for public service. Again, it's the borrower and their work with public service for PSLF. So please don't confuse that with the new announcement with President Biden. That's two different types of programs. So public service loan forgiveness, and then there's debt relief. So please, two different qualifications of two different things. Okay. What if you work in a different city or state from your previous employer? So this is where you would have to do electronic, where they would have to do the photo, the signature, and then the photo of their thing. Okay, so a couple more questions here. I'm trying to get through and see if there's anything. Okay, we answered that. Does a recent graduate qualify for this program? If they want to start the process towards PSLF, they can enroll, but you will not get public service loan forgiveness until, again, you have met your 120 qualifying payments and you are working with a qualifying employer for at least 10 years and not consecutively. There could be multiple different employers and different times. Can you explain how to consolidate if we have not already? Yes, great question. So you can go to studentaid.gov/consolidation, and that will be the page where you can see all your options for consolidation. It will allow you to review all different types of repayment plans. It will tell you which is the best one to enroll in for public service loan forgiveness based on your specific loans. So studentaid.gov/consolidation. Okay, if I only have Parent Plus loan, and if I consolidate to another loan, will it qualify for PSLF? If you have your own student loans and you consolidate your Parent Plus loans with your student loans, it will be the count of your student loans, the student payments that you made. So you do not get additional, in short, you do not get additional payment counts for Parent Plus loans. If you have consolidated a new consolidation of Parent Plus loans, there will be no additional counts. If you have previously consolidated with your Parent Plus loans and you submit a PSLF form, then those years, those payments from the time of consolidation to now will count. So Dallas County employers, yes, you will send to payroll to certify and complete, but instead of sending it to Fed Loan, because again, Fed Loan is no longer the loan servicer for PSLF, you will be sending it to MOHELA. If I already have my application printed, who do I go to get signatures from my employer? You would either go to your HR representative or someone who can verify that you have indeed worked there, but it cannot be your immediate supervisor. It has to be the person who's over the tax registration, the employer verification, so HR representative. Huh? How long does the process take from start to finish? It really varies from every person. There's some borrowers that have to consolidate. You can consolidate and submit your form at the same time, by the way. So because we have a limited time, I don't want you to wait and say, oh, well, I got to do consolidation first and now I got to apply. Do them at the same time. We only have a month, okay? So do it at the same time. Consolidate. If you have fellow Perkins, consolidate into a direct loan program and submit your PSLF form. If you're doing consolidation, that is a process in itself to make sure that your loans are being consolidated. And then you also have the process when they go to MOHELA with the increased volume. They got to review, you're verifying your employers first. If you're with a different loan servicer, then that means they got to transfer you into MOHELA if you have eligible employers, and then they do the payment counts, and then they do the payment counts not all at once, but they might have multiple iterations of your payment counts. So just see how I'm just talking here. You're starting to what, like, oh, okay, this is a whole process. Yes, it's not as simple as one, two, three, everyone. So be please, 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 we appreciate your patience. We know that you are eager. We know that you want to know. We know all those things, but there's a lot that we need to go through in the process, and everybody's different. Some people only had direct loans, and so it was easy. Some of them had direct loans and Ari was with Mohila. So it was quicker, so everybody has a different process. So there's not an average time. Okay. All right. So I think we are over time now. So we're going to end here. So thank you guys so much for your questions. If there are any other questions, I'm going to take a transcript of this and see if I can send this out with some frequently asked questions, and send this copy of this webinar to you, as well as the slides for today. I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to allow for Judge Jenkins to come right back for us to have our closing remarks.
So I hope that this has been helpful to everyone. It will be posted on the internet. So if it was helpful to you, tell your friends. And, it's important that we get this done and get it done for you quickly so that you don't miss this important deadline. Tanika, thank you and the Department of Education for this informative webinar. And for everyone that has attended this webinar, thank you for your incredible public service. We appreciate you, and we want to do everything that we can to get you as much benefit as we can before this closes on October 31st. Thank you.